Ready.
Wow, that's loud. How's everybody doing? Good to see everybody. Thank you for coming. I've got a couple personnel updates for everybody real quick, just so everybody's on the same page. Peter Lange, Zach Siulepa, and Ezra Funa, we're still working through their academic process. We're optimistic that they'll be here, but just want to let you guys know that they're not here yet. Mike Mitchell's no longer with the football team, but in terms of what we're doing today, we're bringing back the guys that are here. And the guys that want to be here, players, coaches, staff, and everybody in between. We're excited about that. Our second year at the University of Arizona, building our program here. And from day one, when the season ended last year, it has been all about attacking this offseason, attacking this process. And so for us, what that looked like, it started out with retention of our players, then the portal, staff. So there's a lot in that. And then that went to the off season and building momentum through winter conditioning, building momentum through spring practice, building momentum through spring recruiting, building momentum through summer workouts. And that's where we are now today, right? We're at the start of fall camp. I love where this team is at. I love the effort and the intention, the work they've done with Coach Carroll and our strength and conditioning staff over the last 7 months, the work they've done with our new coaches and the coaches on the staff that were here a year ago. I'm extremely excited about, and I think everybody's just ready to get to work. We're not looking in the rear view, we're looking forward. We're moving forward as a football program, and today we get to start keeping score, and we're excited about that.
All right, if you wouldn't mind, raise your hand if you have questions. I'll call on you. We have 2 wireless mics that we'll bring to you. We'll start with Justin up here in the front. Hold on, Justin, we got mics for you.
Good to see you, Brent. So the off-season, building up the roster, building up the coaching staff, what do you think was the most significant part to that process?
Well, I'd say it's both things. I think when you go through a tough season like we did a year ago, you got to find a way to fix what was broken, fix what wasn't working, and then put those pieces together. And part of those pieces are how we're going to do things in terms of how we're going to coach, what we're going to do schematically. And then the other part of those things are who are the players that are going to play those roles, right? And so we've added more players to a roster than I've ever been a part of this offseason, and also more staff transition than I've ever been a part of. But credit to the new coaches, credit to the new players, and then also credit to our current roster members. Those guys have really helped help the new people understand what our Bear Down Brotherhood is all about and how we're going to do business day in and day out, what our culture is and how we're going to live. And that part of it has been really fun to see.
Jason?
Hey, Coach.
What's up?
Does your approach or mentality change in this fall camp as opposed to last year, with it being your first one?
I would say it's definitely different. My approach, does it change wholeheartedly? No, because I still believe at the end of the day, football is about blocking, tackling, having the right people in the right places and executing at a high level and playing harder than everybody that you compete against. That being said, did I come at this offseason with a different mindset than last season? Absolutely. The circumstances were way different, right? Like this was a much more, in terms of putting the team together and building it, it was much more in what I thought we needed here at the U of A. And so we're kind of in we've been on the job for, I think, 19 months now, or maybe a little bit less than that. And so when you look at that, how do you get the right people in the right seats on the bus? How do you get the right players to fit the schemes that you're going to run and execute in? And that's what we've been doing. And so like my mindset or my approach hasn't necessarily changed, because I still think everything has to be process driven. Because last year we killed ourselves with outcome focus. But that can't be who we are now. We have to be worried about today. What is the compliance meeting going to be like this afternoon? We're going to kick ass in that meeting. Right, then we're going to move on to the next meeting, and we're going to dominate that meeting. And we're going to focus on all these small parts as we build our program day in and day out through training camp, so that when we get to the Hawaii game, we will have incredible momentum and be ready to attack that moment at that time.
We'll go to Brad and then Justin next.
Hi, Coach. Brad Sussmat, Sports 360 in Phoenix. Good to see you. What do you like most about your team on the field coming into camp? What concerns you most about your team coming into training camp on the field?
I would say what I like most about where we're at is I think we made huge strides in grasping scheme changes in all 3 phases, right? When you bring in 3 new coordinators, that's a lot of new learning. And I love how the players have just attacked that, throughout the offseason, throughout the spring practice, just how intentional they've been about understanding and being able to apply what that new scheme is going to look like in offense, defense, and special teams. I think what concerns me, I don't know that it concerns me, but like the things we have to figure out, who those pieces are going to be in the special teams, because we've had so much of our roster overhaul. We got to figure out who are going to be the guys that are going to run down on kickoff, right? We got to find out, can we hit it out of the end zone every time like we did with last year with Tyler Loop, right? We had a real benefit with that. I think we got to figure out what the rotation is going to look like in the offensive line, because there's a lot of new pieces there. Overall, we got to do a great job of developing our depth, so that when we do have somebody get nicked, we have a chance for somebody to step in there and execute at a high level and give us a chance to win football games.
Thank you.
Back to Justin.
2 questions, Coach.
The double question this early, we're just getting started.
The competition at center, what did those guys show you, and what did you see out of DeCamero?
Well, I think that's going to be a fun thing to watch, right? Because obviously Grayson has a lot of experience, but I also think KD is a guy that's played multiple spots in the offensive line, right? He's a big athletic kid. He's a tough physical kid, which you like that. And then he's also smart, and I think that position has to be one of your most intelligent players. I think they have to manage so much from the center position. And so that's going to be one of those battles that's going to be fun to watch.
And as far as interior guys go, with Cialepa and Funa still working through some things, who are some other guys as interior linemen that could step up in the offseason? Or
in the defensive line?
Yeah, the interior guys.
Yeah. I think you're going to love seeing. There's been so many additions up there. I think McKnight is going to be something that's going to be fun to watch. I think that started to show up in spring practice. And as you go, Trey Smith is kind of the guy that's everybody's seen and everybody talks about, and he has flexibility to move inside and outside. But I think with what Coach Gonzalez is going to do, you're going to see a really aggressive, attacking movement style front. And so those pieces are going to be a little bit more interchangeable than maybe what they have been in the past, where you're like, okay, we're going to line up in an odd or even front, and this guy's playing a 4-eye or a shade, and he's holding the A gap. It's going to be a little bit different. So I think it's going to be fun to watch.
We'll go to Brian and then Michael.
Besides quarterback, how many positions would you say right now starting you have locked down? And are you concerned with the lack of those?
That's a really tough question. That is a really. I don't have a good answer for you on that. I really don't. I think the most important thing, with like how we're getting ready for fall camp, is that there's competition, right? So sometimes you might say, hey, this guy's ahead of this guy on the staff, but we're like, we need this guy to push this guy. So we're not going to tell this guy that he's the starter. Does that make sense? Right? Like sometimes you don't want to award a guy that, because will he stay motivated? Will he continue to attack the work in a way you need him to? Right? So we're trying to make sure that every position on the team, including quarterback, feels the pressure of competition in the practice environment.
We'll go to Michael and then David.
Hey, Coach.
Hi, Michael.
In the transfer portal era, where players can go to another school without having to sit out like they used to in the past, does that change in any way the way you coach and manage freshmen who are just starting their careers out in college?
I don't think so, because I think being a freshman player there's a developmental process to getting good at college football. Now, the hard part for all these freshmen is that they were the man last year, wherever they were, right? They were the best player on their high school team. They were the best player in their district. They were the best player in their state, whatever that was. Like, they're all super high level kids, right? But there's a developmental part to getting ready to play on this level, play in the Big 12. And one of the things that I tell the freshmen every year, and it's amazing because some will listen and some won't, is if you know what to do, you'll have a chance to play. Like if you just know what to do. And because the scheme, normally the playbook is expanded in all 3 phases, right? The detail, the technique has been elevated in all 3 phases. And so if those players will listen to that and really dive into knowing what to do, their job responsibility in special teams or offense or defense, those freshmen will have a chance to play, right? And if a freshman is good enough to help us win football games, he's going to play. We're going to put him out there.
We'll go to David and then Jason.
Hey, Coach, 2 questions from me as well. Just to kind of follow on what Michael said there, we're in an era now, obviously, where guys can leave, established guys can leave and come back, like we saw with Kean Burnett. What was your assessment of the Kean situation? How did you handle that? And obviously, he's a guy that leaves here as your number 1 tight end. Does he come back as your number 1 tight end, or is there a process for him to work his way back into that position?
There's 6 questions in there, so I'll try and answer each one. Okay. First of all, when Kean told me that he was interested in exploring that, I was respectful of it. I think it's important that I'm respectful of that. It's their option to do it. And so if I'm a jerk, there's no way we're getting him back, right? If I handle that moment poorly, there's no way he's going to want to come back and play for a team that I'm the head coach of, right? I love Kean. I told him that when I said, I'm sad you're leaving. I love you, and if things change, let us know. And things changed, and we had a chance for him to come back to us, right? And I think the cool thing about that is, at the end of the day, he chose the University of Arizona, and he chose the players and the coaches in this program. He chose that because he believes in that. He missed that. He missed how that felt. He missed what that experience had been for him. And that's why he chose to come back. Now, does he walk back in the door, tight end 1? Like, probably not at the start of spring practice, right? Because there's other players there that are making really great, that were making really great progress, I'm sorry, at the start of fall practice. But is he going to be in the mix? Is he going to be at the front of the line? Sure. And that's one of those positions where the competition is going to be fierce, because there's some players in there. Tyler Powell's made a great move this offseason, really impressive move, right? And then we know Sam Olsen is a productive player, right? So we know that there's good stuff there. And then we know there's some young players stepping in there. We want to see what he can do too. So it's good. That's going to be a lot of fun.
And some of these veteran offensive linemen you've been able to add, like the Campbell, like Bounds, like Buchanan, do you find it easier maybe to get experienced linemen in the portal than maybe it was before?
No, it's our general manager's back there. He's laughing right now at my answer to that question. I would say outside of quarterback, offensive line is the hardest position to recruit out of the portal. It is the hardest one. It has the most competition. It is the most intense. The hard part about it is, for some people, like the guys you mentioned, we're recruiting them to come in here and compete for a starting job right now. A lot of the young men that are entering the portal as an offensive lineman, they don't know that they're getting recruited to another school to go be a backup. They don't know that because, someone on the other side of that equation is not telling them the truth, right? But those guys, we're expecting them to compete for a job.
Go to Jason Barr and then Troy.
Yeah, hi, Jason Barr, KGUN9. Certainly, lots being made that this is Noah Fafita's first year playing without his best bud, but wide receiver is your specialty, and you've stacked that room with a bunch of quality players. What's been the thought process behind the wide receiver position and helping Noah and having to replace T-Mac in the offseason?
I think that's one of those questions that I've been getting a lot this summer. How are you going to replace T-Mac? And you don't. You don't replace a player like that. You know what I mean? He's that talented. He's that special. Now, do I think that we have more people in that room that can contribute this year than we did last year? I do. And that was part of the offseason. Number one, early in the season last year, I said to Coach Wade, we have to get faster at receiver. That was an absolute mantra. I was driving that so hard. And like you said, in the receiver space, I can be a little bit of a hard ass because that's my thing. And so we needed more people to even that out, because what we felt so much last year with T-Mac was that people were able to push so much coverage to him. And it made it much more challenging to distribute the football, to attack every, you want to be able to attack every space on the field, right? And we weren't able to do that effectively. And so I think the people that we added in that room, the combination of speed and also production, gives us a chance to feel great about that receiver room going forward.
We'll go with Troy and then back to Justin.
You kind of talk about it in terms of the depth that you guys were able to add. How do you feel about the depth at the offensive line and compared to last year at this time, just the bodies that you have in the room?
We feel good, but I'll tell you this, everybody feels good about the depth at the offensive line at the start of training camp. You know what I mean? That's that part of it. But I do think those guys have worked extremely hard this offseason. I think Coach Carroll and his staff have done a great job physically preparing them. Our training staff has done an incredible job getting them ready for just what is coming. And so that part of it, then we got to be smart in the practice environment, but we also got to get the work done, right? That's the thing. That is the rub that every college coach struggles with this time of year. How do we get the desired physicality in practice that we need to be game ready and keep our team safe at the same time, right? That's the $1 million question that everybody is working through.
Justin and Michael.
Last year, do you feel like Noah, in some cases, was force-feeding T-Mac the ball, and you feel like now that he's no longer here, that and in the new offense, that he'll be able to distribute the ball a little bit more and start reading more?
You know, I said at the press conference, you know, I think where Noah was at last year, that was my fault, that we didn't put enough speed on the field to help offset the triple coverage going to T-Mac. And then I also felt like when we went through some of the injury stuff, that put him in a situation where he didn't have time. So like force feeding T-Mac the ball, number one, to me is not necessarily the worst idea because he's such a good player, but it was also a little bit of an outlet or a little bit of a security blanket for him, right? Because there were times where he was running for his life. But I think I'm confident with what we're going to do with our new offense, where the ball is going to be distributed. The ball is going to be out of his hand. There's going to be enough variety and variation of people that he can distribute the ball to that gives us a chance to move the football the way we want to.
What about Michael and then Brian?
Just kind of following up on that, no matter where the blame lies, I think it's fair to say that Noah did develop some bad habits last year as a quarterback. In your experience as a coach, how hard is it to shed bad habits and develop good habits?
Well, I think for him, like just watching him practice over, you know, the last spring practice and just kind of the steps he made, the relationship he has with Coach Daggy, the chemistry that he's building with this new group of receivers and kind of all the other pieces, the tight ends and the running backs. Noah is so diligent. Like I don't worry about that at all. Like that's not a concern for me. If he was lazy, if he was not a player that worked every day, that studied film every day, that found every second of every day to work at getting better at football, then I'd be concerned. But he is one of the most conscientious, diligent workers I've ever seen, and he'll blow through all that stuff. You're gonna love the way he looks when he starts playing this fall. It's gonna be fun.
Go to Brian and then Jason Shearer.
At what point during camp do you want to move from still working on the fundamentals because you have to adapt all these new players that came in the summer and getting into the actual, like, not so much the plan for Hawaii, but just like the overall scheme of the offense and defense and everything?
No, that'll happen tomorrow. Like we'll get right into that. Like every practice will be kind of broken up. Like you know, this part fundamental technique, right, and then push into 7-on-7, O-line, D-line working together, and then team. So that'll happen fast.
Jason and then Damien in the back.
Obviously, you brought in quite a few transfers. You have guys like Kia Sadea, for instance, you've seen what he can do at this level, and then you have a guy like, say, Chance Roberts, who is at Albany. How do you assess and say, okay, a guy from a smaller school is likely to be successful here? Is it something that you also just have to kind of see in practice?
Yes to both questions. I think, the beauty of that with some of those guys is that we had them here in spring. And so, or not Chance, but some of the other guys from smaller schools, we had them here in spring so we can get to see how they look competing against us. You know what I mean? And I think I mentioned it before, but one of our focuses in the transfer portal was just finding players that had played meaningful snaps. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of those hard things where some people are like, oh, so-and-so, this 4-star from some school is, they got him and he's never played, right? And he might have a high ceiling, but he's never played. And so where is he on that journey of development that I was talking about earlier, right? He might be on step 1. So now he might be just like a freshman, but he's going into his last year or second to last year. But someone who has played, like Riley Wilson, who's played a ton of snaps, there's an incredible value in the amount of snaps that he's played because you learn as you play. And, playing in the games is the best teacher there is.
Brent back here. So last year you said that you guys killed yourselves being outcome focused. Now it sounds as if you have a little more tunnel vision, staying in the moment. Why zero in on being outcome focused and recognizing that that was something that needed to change and alter?
Well, I think because, as we got into it, it was whether it was a single drill, whether it was in the practice environment, whether it was in a game, like even the games that we won didn't feel good to the players. We didn't win by enough. We didn't play well enough on this side of the ball. We didn't play well enough, right? And that part of it, I think, was just watching them go through that. And then when we did lose a game, it was incredibly devastating. Working with our team, talking with our team, trying to pull us out of the funk that put us in, just because we've been so focused on something so far down the road. And so how do we pull us back to, like, the only way to get right is by doing the work that is required right now. And so trying to keep pulling us back. And so the great thing about this team is, in this offseason, has been how they've attacked the work, how they've attacked the, I'm not just talking about football. We had the highest team GPA in the history of Arizona football this last semester. Like, they're on it, all parts of it, right? And that's what I'm talking about, being focused on the process, that process of development. Because when I watch them go through that with Beyond Football, with Tobruk Lane, like, all parts of our program are firing on all cylinders because these players are so committed to each other and they're so committed to the process.
Go Jordan in the back, and then we'll come back to David.
Hey, Coach Jordan Ham, Sports 360 AZ. How is this running back room unique to some of the other running back rooms you've had in the past?
Well, I think it's deep with explosive and exciting players. I think that's one of those battles that everyone's excited to see kind of work its way, in fall camp. Obviously, like, each guy brings a little different skill set and a little bit different experience to the table. Everybody from KD, who obviously was a solid player for us a year ago and has just had a great offseason. But then when you go back to, Ishmael, who was a super productive player at his last stop, Quincy, who was also a really productive player at his last stop, and then you have Korn, who just came off winning a state championship in Texas. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them compete and get after it.
We'll go David and then Justin.
And just to follow on that question from Jordan, you said at Big 12 Media Day that you felt like you didn't run the ball well enough to take some of that pressure off of Noah last year. How much of that is a numbers thing, like you didn't run it enough in each game? How much of that was an effectiveness thing, like if we had run it at the same amount of numbers, we just have to run it more effectively?
Yeah, I would agree with you. It is about effectively running it. And I think that part of it, some of that happened to us because of the injury and the inconsistency of, like, who we were playing with in the offensive front, but also think that that's one of those things that you also need to stick with. And in some of those situations, we were chasing points, or we were in a bad situation. We felt like we had to throw it to get out of it, And when you do that, it makes it hard because your opponent knows that you're dropping back to pass, right? Like, that part of it. And so trying to keep people off balance with a more consistent, a more efficient run game is a huge focus for us. And I think we're in a good spot to do it with the running back room and with the players up front.
We'll go Justin, then back to Michael.
The injury thing last year, how do you look at that, and you feel like it almost could be like a blessing in disguise in some way because it brings back Traden Stukes, Jack Luttrell gets those kind of reps? You feel like that helps you out for this year?
Well, I think anytime a player gets hurt or injured, like, someone else has to step up and take advantage of that opportunity. And I felt like there were several players that did that last season. Obviously, when we were going through that, we just went through an incredibly deep dive and we talked about this, 10 months ago, with our training staff, with our team doctors, with our strength conditioning staff, about, what that was. And that's also one of those things that football is a tough game. And sometimes injuries are just part of it. And as heartbreaking as they are, when it happens, it's an opportunity for someone else to step up. And that's why what I mentioned earlier, the development of our depth during training camp is so critical. That we get guys lots of reps and that we get guys lots of experience right now and get guys competing at a high level and feeling that pressure or competition in their position group so that they're ready if there is something like that unfortunate to happen.
Michael?
2 questions.
Here we go.
Yeah. So I think you have 20 offensive linemen on your roster right now, and as you mentioned, a couple JUCO defensive tackles aren't here yet, and their status is up in the air. Could you envision a scenario where you're maybe moving some offensive linemen to defensive line at some point if the numbers sort of dictate that?
I think that's always based on a situation. normally that's like a catastrophe. So I'm like I really don't want that. You know what I mean? That's not. But yeah, I mean, I think that you do that, like whatever it takes to win a game. So like if there's someone that can help us in that space, absolutely.
And the way you structured training camp, I know you're probably doing more stuff than what we get access to, but this kind of like morning, night off, morning, night off. What was the basis for structuring it that way?
The biggest thing is because we play all our games at night in that stadium, and so we wanted our players to be exposed to just playing in there, what that feels like, the lights, the heat, all of it. And so just trying to and we didn't do that a year ago. And I think after the first game, I think I talked about it with Ben Thenis and some of the other coaches, like, hey man, we need to practice in the stadium at night. So
We'll go back to Jordan for our final question.
What sort of benefits have you seen for Noah going through the Manning Passing Academy experience?
I think it's really an incredible honor that he was invited. And I think just talking to him, the experience is exciting because when you go through that, you realize that you get to see yourself head to head with these other players. And I think for Noah, I think it was validation that I throw it just as good as all these other guys. All these other players that everyone's talking about, I rip it just as good as them, because he does.
Thank you, Coach. Thank